Greetings, folks. Today we're talking about transhumanism. And transhumanism is a bit of a complex term. It, in fact, comes to mind and as a topic because people continue to ask exactly what is transhumanism? What do transhumanists believe? What is the goal of that particular ideology? And how does it relate to other ideologies? Now, one of the problems with a term like transhumanism is that you get a lot of variety in definitions. Everybody's got their own take on it, their own ideas on what it means, and what people who embrace that ideology stand for, what they're trying to accomplish. But there are some certain commonalities that we can look at, and to a certain extent, this will also be partly an interpretation of that concept and looking at it from one particular perspective. So it's worth exploring further, but I think this will give a strong founding to anyone who is interested in the concept, the ideology, or the things that can be done with it. So the American Heritage Dictionary gives three different definitions of transhumanism. First is a belief that humans should strive to transcend the physical limitations of the mind and body by technological means. The second, a movement of people who espouse such a belief. And the third, a philosophy, favoring the use of science and technology, especially neurotechnology, biotechnology, and nanotechnology, to overcome human limitations and improve the human condition. Now, this seems like something of a narrow definition, but it's a good place to start and to look at some of the things that generally are assumed to be transhuman widely enough that a major dictionary would pick them up and run with them. So the basic idea, of course, all this comes back to is the idea of transcendence or transcending limitations to overcome the human condition, which fits with a broader definition that would simply be the use of science and technology to improve the human condition, whatever elements that may include. And what's interesting about this is that it isn't just a very modern thing. These are the same sorts of approaches and interests that humans have always had. We have been a species that is really focused on the use of tools and ideas and understanding to not just survive but thrive in harsh places and situations, and even against other species which we would otherwise not have any advantage over. In order to defeat the lion, you have to create the spear, because the human hands are not very well prepared to do so. You can't outrun it. You have to outthink it, and you have to have the tools in order to effectively defend yourself. The creation of fire was a huge change in humans' capacity because suddenly we could control an energy source. And ever since that time, taking energy sources and applying them has continued to be a way to improve our lives. And so, in a broader sense, transhumanism is kind of the ongoing development of humankind. It's what we have always sort of done. We've continually in transition from whatever knowledge, technology, whatever level of capability we had before to the next level. And what transhumanism is doing is recognizing this in a more complete fashion. And for an age when we may start to see, in fact we already have seen, a degree of additional options for humans. And I stress that these are options. We don't have to go down any of these roads. And the ideal applications of a lot of the more invasive technologies, everything from mind-machine interfaces to leg replacements, are things that always should be optional to the individual. In fact, a central tenet of most transhumanism is the idea of total individual bodily autonomy. You can choose to do to yourself, with yourself, whatever you wish, as long, of course, as it does not significantly harm or interfere with someone else's similar autonomy. So a lot of the issues that we would have with forced chipping or things that people complain about should not fit within that philosophy if it is taken from a reasonable and open standpoint. The term itself, of course, is a recent addition, and so is the specific melding of philosophies, but a lot of this is the same material that was growing out of the Enlightenment and scientific philosophy for a long time, with some focus on more of human benefit and opportunity aspects. So transhumanism is also rapidly evolving from where it's at. In fact, one might say it's a trans philosophy in this way, constantly growing, figuring out better sense of what it is and how it functions, with a lot of people coming from very different perspectives. Some are people who are coming at it from a religious background, some are very much an atheistic one. We have both techno-libertarians and techno-progressives spanning significant portions of the political spectrum, with the only major common focus, this idea that we want to continue to develop great science and technology in order to improve the human lives. And that, of course, brings us to the idea that technologies in transhumanism are very broad indeed. We have everything from space colonization concepts and seasteading to current developments in genetic engineering, organismal development, medicine. In fact, one of the major focal points of transhumanism in terms of medicine is the idea of radical longevity. A lot of people call it immortality, but that's definitely a misuse of the term. The idea is simply that we're going to make humans live significantly longer than they do now. And when we do this, it will not just be that they live longer, but they will also live much healthier. So you may actually have lived for 200 years, but you will still feel like you're 25 years old. That is kind of the ideal option that is being aimed at. Virtually no one is suggesting that we want people living like this to try and deal with it being horribly aged as if they were a very limited individual of 100 years now for the rest of a million years. That would be a very unpleasant way to live, and certainly not something we want to push people into. Transhumanism continues to expand and grow. It has an ever-broadening array of different organizations supporting it, from the SENS Foundation to Humanity Plus to even the Mormon Transhumanist Association. And it is something that we should all be aware of as a philosophy, whether one agrees with it or not, as it is certainly going to be a great place to look for insights as we move into an ever more technologically dominated future, one in which helping people and bringing them together as part of and around all of the technological developments that we are seeing is going to become an interesting and intricate challenge that this particular viewpoint can certainly help us with. And it will also help us to better understand and consider where we should take our technologies in the future. In that regard, it is somewhat related to science fiction. And of course, science fiction has always looked at some of these same concepts, this idea of using technology to build futures and what the consequences might be. So I would encourage anyone interested to look further, and I will certainly include links from this video to some transhumanist sites, a few definitions, maybe a little philosophy to give you better insights into this philosophy and a little chance for some very interesting reading. I encourage you to like the video, subscribe, the usual litany of things that you're supposed to do at the end, or I suppose somewhere in the middle of a YouTube video. It'll be a good time. We'll continue to have these discussions, and I would certainly like to hear any feedback you may have or any discussions. What do you think about transhumanism? How should it progress? What is the other perspective? What are better definitions or other definitions, I suppose, since it's really truly hard to say which one is better or worse at this time. Anyway, thank you for listening. I will catch you next time.